All right, all right, all right. Welcome to another episode of The Close Up, a part of Orlando Magic HQ. I'm your host, Stephen Cameron, and today we have Ryan Kaminski with Learning Basketball Podcast and NBA writer for Sports Illustrated. He covers the Magic as well as a couple other teams. He's local to Orlando, so he goes to a lot of games and is part of the press conferences and media scrums and stuff like that. We have a really good conversation. We talk about the fun aspect of Jace Richardson participating in the dunk contest and almost having a concussion. We talk about the ups and downs of this team, the success with certain players on the floor, the trends that we're seeing and that the data backs up when you have this team healthy. We get into Paolo Banchero. He's a hot topic for a lot of people right now. We get into him pretty specifically. We get into Coach Mosley, his rotations, and how he's been doing this year. We talk a lot about Jalen Suggs and his importance to the team. It's a really good episode. Make sure to give Ryan a follow. You can find his information in the show description. He's a great basketball mind. He's puts out really good content as well with his show and his writing. And we have a fun time talking basketball. So before we get into that show, just a quick reminder, please like and subscribe to this show on our YouTube channel. Give us a review on the podcast platforms. If you're listening to the audio version, that helps us a lot. Share it with a friend if you'd like. That helps too. Check out our Patreon program. We have a lot of stuff going on there. And we also just ran a giveaway for a jersey. Shout out Duval. He's an active member in our Spaces community that happens pretty regularly after every game on X. You can find our post-game Spaces there, hosted by Stanley. Shout out Stanley. He does a great job with that show. And congrats on the jersey giveaway, Duval. Yeah, I'm not going to talk too long. Let's just get into this conversation with Ryan. Thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. All right, everyone. Like I said, we got Ryan Kaminski in the building, host of Learning Basketball Podcast on Swish Theory. He also does writing on the Orlando Magic on Sports Illustrated. Ryan, good morning. How are you doing today?
Hey, Steven, I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good, man.
Some hoops.
I'm ready to talk some hoops. We're recording this Sunday, February 15th, the morning. You know, we just had some classic Orlando Magic All-Star Weekend on Saturday. Let's just have some fun, start there for a little bit. So this year, we're all a little disappointed. You know, we were hoping at the start of the season, the Magic would have one, maybe even two All-Star participants in the All-Star game. This season has not gone the way we all were hoping and expecting it would. And the only participant in All-Star Weekend was Jace Richardson, which was kind of unexpected. I didn't think that. We heard the rumors that AB he turned down the dunk contest opportunity. And then all of a sudden we get an announcement with the whole roster of dunk participants, and Jace Richardson is one of them. I did not expect that personally.
Neither did he, apparently.
He didn't. I don't think so. What'd you think about the night and All-Star Saturday in general from what you watched?
I mean, you know, we still love you, Jace. You know, you went out there, you put the jersey on, and Jace had fun with it. You know,
yeah,
that's what's important. Is I think, you know, Jace was in on the joke and excited to be a part of just, you know, the whole experience, because it really is cool to be a part of it with his dad and go through all that and just have a chance to get up some dunks. And like, he already tweeted, there was one meme of one of his missed dunks that have gone viral. Which, you know, understandable.
The one of him falling.
He fell pretty hard. You know,
Jace
fell pretty hard. I hope he's feeling okay. And he tweeted out, you know, I've been crying laughing for the past hours. So, you know, at least he's having fun with it. Like, all his responses are like, you know, I'm just happy to be here. I don't know who invited me. Like, I don't know what I'm doing here either. So he's having fun with it. So it was cool to just see Jace, you know, get celebrated. And at the end of the day, like, I think, you know, he probably talked to his family about doing, like, whether or not he should do it. And everyone's like, yeah, why not? You get a little more platform. Like, you get your name out there. You get kind of talked about. People know you're on their radar now. And then when you pop off for the Magic, they're like, oh, he not only can he dunk a little bit, like, he has an all-around game. Because the sneaky thing about Jace, like, I tweeted out, they should have brought out Jackson for a little game breaker double alley-oop with his little brother Jackson, who's actually taller and kind of more of an explosive, athletic, big play finisher dunker, because he's just so much bigger. So, like, you actually could see Jackson in the dunk contest down the line running this as well, the same idea back, because he's that good of a dunker. But with Jace, he's got all the skill, like shooting touch. I mean, like, he's just got so much ball skills that, like, I think this puts him on the radar a little bit more nationally, globally. That's the whole point of this, you know, highlight some young guys. And the dunk contest is kind of like trending in that rising stars direction,
A
where
little
it's
bit.
just like, no, we can't get the actual all-stars to do this anymore, so let's kind of feature some other young players this way. And they got to do something, so this is the route we're at for now until they can kind of save the contest. But long term, it's just a fun weekend, and Jace gets on the radar a little bit. And now, like I said, when he pops off for the Magic, like he's been doing, like people are just a little more aware of who he is, and they'll immediately realize he's more than just a dunker. Like he's a guy that can dribble, pass, shoot, point guard. Like you know, a dunker is really the last thing you think of with his game. But I
He's
like
more
that
of the
since
falling
this,
dunker. He's more
yeah,
than just
like
the falling dunker.
he since he got that invite, he has already been more aggressive trying to get more dunks in the games, and
Yeah.
that's what I've been excited about for Jace. Is just like, yes, like there's a little bit more confidence. Like, yeah, I'm in the dunk contest for a reason. Like he can dunk like that. So get up and go for it, Jace.
I think in general, like his first dunk was pretty fun, a little homage to his dad. And he put it down clean on the first attempt. Like that's always like, get it
That's
on your
big.
first go. That was nice. Had a pretty respectable score. I think it was like a 45.2 or 45.4 or something like that. And then, obviously the second dunk, I always get like a little. So I was happy that there was less props in this dunk contest in general. I felt like we've gotten a little. There was a couple of years there where it was like everyone was dunking over someone's head, and everyone was using some form of a prop or assist to get there. So that was like just in general theme. I thought it was nice to have less of that this year. But then you get one of these like he's got that passer, his friend or agent or whoever that was throwing the passes off the edge of the backboard there. It's like you're creating such a larger margin for error when you are doing something like that. You have more variables to go wrong with the passer, with how the ball might come off the edge of the backboard, the most awkward place to try and put that ball off the backboard. Then you're trying to throw a 360 into it. Like that's complicated. I'm glad he laughed off the fall. I'm glad he wasn't hurt. And then, was able to go like throw a nice little 360 to still at least get something on the board and finish the round. So overall, though, I agree with you. Like it was fun. He didn't get hurt and, puts his name on the spotlight a little bit more. Hopefully will pop off and, people will like quickly forget the fall and keep that as a laughing moment and just, see him become a good NBA player. In
Yeah,
general,
on that
yeah, go
last
ahead.
dunk, I'm trying to think of who did it, but that's one of those passes you try like where you kind of want a bad pass only so you can show off some crazy athleticism by still finishing it. But
Yeah,
like you need like a Dwight Howard, Aaron Gordon level athlete to
yeah,
clean that kind of dunk up, where that's what kind of makes it. So like if you can't kind of clean up the bad pass with crazy athleticism, it's really hard to pull off
yeah.
off the corner of the backboard alley oop 360. But I think it was like Oladipo or Iguodala. Somebody did something like that at that angle that was just insane back in the day. So I'll try to think of it as we go. But yeah,
It,
it was cool to see him, and also shout out Dame Lillard. 3-point
dude,
contest winner coming off an injury like it's nothing. Like
the
like
three
like
point
riding a
contest was
bike.
great. I had so
Right.
much fun watching the 3-point contest. That was super fun. And then my
Yeah.
daughter joined
3-point
me for
contest
the.
still has it. Still has it.
I'll just say this for everyone that's like hates on the dunk contest, like in general, like I get it. I understand. Like a lot of those dunks we saw were not completely blowing our minds away. First off, I still can't do any of those dunks. And my daughter, who's 3, who joined me, loved every single one of them. So,
There
you
you go.
know, it was like I had a good time, but I have such low expectations for All Star Weekend. Like, I have accepted years ago that this is never going to be like what we all want it to be. It's going to be what it is, a pretty mediocre experience of high level competition outside of the 3-point contest. And it's going to be a lot of guys having fun. And we, as fans, like we have it on such a high pedestal. It's never going to hit that pedestal. So I just stopped having it up there. And I'm like, was I entertained? Did I enjoy it, or was I wanting to turn off the TV? I never thought about turning off the TV. I watched the whole thing. I was like, all right, cool. Like it was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
wasn't the best dunk contest ever. I thought it was nice not to see so many props being used, which was fun. Definitely like just kind of like it was better than the Cole Anthony dunk contest year. Like that year was awful in my opinion. But we'll see. Maybe marginally better than that year. But go Jace. Glad you're okay. Always nice to have some sort of Magic spotlight on the weekend. Speaking of Orlando Magic, Ryan, let's get into it. So it is All-Star break. The Magic are currently 28 and 25, seventh in the East. They lost their last game to the Milwaukee Bucks on the 11th after going on a 3-game winning streak versus Brooklyn Nets, Utah, and then the Milwaukee Bucks. They played them twice. I think it's been talked about enough this whole year that this season has been a disappointment in many different aspects regarding how the Magic are doing. We all expected them to kind of take this leap and be maybe not as good as how the Pistons have exceeded expectations, but pretty regularly a top 4 team in the East all year. And they've pretty regularly been not a top 4 team in the East all year. They've dealt with injuries like they did in previous years, which is something we were hoping they would have behind them. Thankfully, none of the injuries have been super long term. Debatable on Franz's injury. He was out for quite a few games. If you consider the time that he missed before Europe, playing those 2 Europe games, and then the time that he missed after Europe, that's kind of a bummer there. Jalen Suggs missed some time. Paolo missed some time. It was kind of like in sequencing order from how they missed time last year, just not nearly as long with each one. How are you dissecting the season? How are you feeling about the Magic sitting at 28 and 25, just a few games above 500 with 29 games remaining in this season so far, right?
Yeah, it feels a lot kind of like last season, like you said, in terms of the first time around is there's no expectations. Everyone's pretty healthy. Things go about as right as possible. Like this is 2 years ago, and they make the playoffs, and they're the fun team. Coach Mosley finished second coach of the year. They're getting playoff experiences, throwing blows with the Cavs, and like that was the we have arrived young team moment. And the last 2 years, like I got to start here, like always, that the fans hate to hear it, but like they've been riddled with injuries, and it's really hard to judge the team when your best players are just not available. There's all those stats where like it was the first time in 470 days that the Magic were healthy. This week, all at once, in terms of like they've been missing a Mo Wagner or a Jalen Suggs just for over a year. And when you really boil down what this team does best, it's forcing turnovers and scoring off of them as their bread and butter, because they can't really rely always on the half court offense, but generally you can rely on the half court defense for this team. And the guys that really spark the energy plays for those type of moments are Jalen Suggs and Mo Wagner, hyping up the team, hyping up the crowd, and now Desmond Bane too, diving on loose balls on the floor.
Even outside of that, like just to hammer the injury thing, like I think between this season and last season, Paolo, Franz, and Jalen Suggs, those 3, not even including Bane because he wasn't here last season, they've only played, I think, 19 games together in the last season and a half. Like, that is so little time together. And I don't think people really understand how that can truly impact a team that is built around those 3 players, 4 now if you include Bane, and how that can really throw off the chemistry. Now, we were getting ready to talk about some of this before we started hitting record, and I said, hold on, I have thoughts, but then you're like, no, save it. Let's just start recording. I'm like, okay, cool. Injuries are a part of the league, right? And that is a huge factor why this team hasn't had success. But I think the point that I wanted to tell you that we're saving now is that when other teams, and I think we're seeing a huge roster flaw with this team right now. When other teams have injuries to one of their core players, they have someone, or they change the system to an extent to where, yes, that team probably has a lower bottom of performance that they're going to hit, but it's like the floor is not dropping off, where it's like the Magic, you lose one of those players and they go from a team that can have one of the best starting lineups in the league to a team that is one of the worst in the league as far as that. We just see the floor completely fall apart with just like, I mean, this team was fairly healthy minus Franz for a little while for a handful of games. Mo was back, and they were still just like completely underperforming. And so like then I look at the roster and it's like, okay, who are these guys filling in for these people? It's Tristan Da Silva, second year player. It's Noah Penda, rookie. It's Jace Richardson, rookie. It's Mo Wagner, who's got defensive issues there. It's Jonathan Isaac, who is offensively incapable and pretty limited in how many minutes he even plays for the team. You just see like the depth issues so much harder when the Magic lose just one player. And to me, that has been one of the biggest eye openings. Like, I think we all came in like hyped, like, oh, wow, look at this team depth. They have, you know, Tristan Da Silva is going to take a leap. They have these young rookies. Well, guys, rookies are almost always bad their first year. They're not winning players most of the time. Like Tyus Jones was just a bust of a signing for us, unfortunately. We just lost like the depth we didn't have. We thought we did, and it just is not really there when an injury is gone. I think when they're healthy, which we're just starting to get into as a team, that perception might shift a little bit. But I still think in general, we're seeing a bigger hole of just lack of experience on this team on the second part. I think the oldest player is now Desmond Bain, Javon Carter, the newly assigned guy. I think he's like 30. But he hasn't played any really meaningful basketball for the Magic yet. And he's brand new. So let's exclude him. I think Desmond Bain is the oldest player on the team at like 28. So, and Desmond Bain is the only player. I don't know Javon Carter's NBA experience. Let's just take him out of the conversation for a moment. And Desmond Bain is the only Magic player that's been on this roster that has playoff experience that has not included the last 2 years of playoff basketball for the Magic. Jonathan Isaac has playoff experience, again, for the Magic in 2019. Other than that, the rest of the team only has playoff experience in the last 2 years outside of Desmond Bain. And that is just like, to me, for a team that's trying to compete to be a top team in the East, that's just unacceptable to have that little experience on this team. Like, there's got to be a way. And I don't think I realized it this summer because we're all just like hyped on the Desmond Bain trade and acquiring Tyus Jones, who has good amount of playoff experience, 40% 3-point shooter for his career. Obviously, that did not work out. But it's like, I don't think I realized until a handful of weeks ago, like, wow, this team just still is so young and so unexperienced as far as like deep playoff runs.
Yeah, in terms of their experience, yeah, for sure. So you're concerned that like they'll need that experience for the playoffs is
Yeah,
what
I
we're getting
think
to, and
so.
just kind of showing everybody the ropes in the locker room.
Yeah, it's harder to weather the storm in the regular season when you haven't have that like those guiding voices to keep you afloat and also like to fill in for depth, like
Yeah.
you're asking a second and first year player to like understand every offensive scheme that's been that plays in the NBA defensively and where a guy with more veteran experience who maybe not is the strongest defender in the world, but at least understands what they're seeing at a higher level. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, I know I just went on a big long rant there, Ryan, but like, that's been my biggest thing recently is with the roster construction and the lack of experience it actually has.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely is a fair thing to point out about the roster. I think there's a lot of thoughts there. On one hand, I think the whole league tends to be trending that way too. It's like the whole league kind of generally isn't valuing veterans as much. There's like compared to say 10 years ago, there's a lot less guys in their 30s than there are, young prospects building up the bench with the potential and hope of all these, endlessly rebuilding teams. So there's the whole league as a whole has just trended much younger. So I think
Yeah.
that's part of it in terms of the age. But, in terms of the experience, you're right. The goal is for them to get some of this together. And it's interesting with the injuries. I think part of it is kind of what we're hitting on with the injuries is that this lineup is built so that Franz and Paolo are primarily on the ball, and Suggs, Bain, Anthony Black are primarily connector, secondary options off the ball, spreading the floor. And Wendell's in that group too, as kind of the starting top six when they're all healthy. So most of their touches should be Paolo and Franz downhill, Bane, Suggs, Black, Wendell spreading the floor, all 40% 3-point shooters, all, varying volume. Bane, Wendell less than the other three. But when the other three, the Magic's offense, I think, can also be at its most lethal when they are targeting outside shots for those other three. When this offense becomes like, let's set up Bane, Suggs, and Black for three as our first option, second option, and then that will open up the driving lanes for everyone else. Because what this team does really well is drive the basketball. That's how they do everything. They're 12th in drives, they're 5th in points off drives, they're third. But what's interesting is they talk about drive and kick, but they don't really kick. And that's either because they don't trust who they're kicking to, or they trust that they can score a better chance of scoring or drawing a foul than kick out hitting the open three. But I think that's kind of the growing pains of the reality of the last 2 years, is that Paolo has played with a lot of third teamers for 2 years now, where he's just has a completely different mindset of what he's had to do for this team when he's out there, compared to everyone else who's kind of found their role in this drive and kick endless handoff machine, whether it's Franz or Bane running a handoff with Wendell or Goga. Now Mo Wagner's back as well. A quick thought on Tyus Jones is even I asked him halfway through the season, and he even said his role never got more clearer. And I believe him, because the benefit of Coach Mosley's system is everyone gets an opportunity when their time is called, and they, based on the matchup and some different, analytic lineups, perhaps he makes a decision on who to play that night. But when you're a role player, it's a lot harder to find that rhythm and know what you're supposed to do when you don't have a defined role. And Tyus is clearly the 6-man type point guard role. And one thing that never worked out, and it stinks, is Mo Wagner was hurt the whole time.
Yeah.
The whole idea with Tyus was he would be replacing Corey Joseph and Cole Anthony as this 6-man fringe, on offense. He can run an offense and he can hit the open three in theory. Of course, he didn't hit that many open threes here, and he did not help much defensively. So it was really hard to play him anywhere when basically the whole reason, or not the whole reason, but one reason we had him was to run the bench offense with Mo Wagner, and Mo was never healthy. He just came back right a month or couple weeks before the trade deadline. So it was almost like a small gamble that didn't work out with Tyus, but then it got worse because they had to shed the salary with 2 second-round picks at the deadline. And, they have Jace Richardson ready to go. I was getting at that earlier with he really has popped. Him and Noah Penda are rookies, but they are good rookies. They're impacting, positive impact already as rookies, which I don't think the team necessarily saw coming, and probably made Tyus and maybe Isaac and Goga a little more available at the deadline, because those were the rumored names. They're not exactly a part of the core. You saw Jed Howard's name get thrown in there as kind of the last other prospect that might, get thrown in a deal. But I think everyone else is kind of a part of this team for sure going forward. And you have a clear top 6 plus Jason Penda to make it top 8 as kind of this 26 and under, or 28 with Bane, young core going forward. So that to me is all a nucleus of this team will be good now and for the next few years, playoff level good if they can find their defense. And I might as well hit you with some of the stats you want from the last couple weeks.
Yeah.
Just a couple good signs. The forcing turnovers, the whole bread and butter, is back since January 25th. Orlando has rated 2nd in the league at forcing turnovers since January 25th, which it's only about 20 days or so, but we'll take it. It's been, they have not been that high in a long time. That's about,
it's a 9-game sample size for
yeah.
people that are wondering.
Just about 9 games. So just finding their rhythm, and that kind of times up with Jalen Suggs and Mo Wagner coming back as well, with them finally getting back in the fold. Forcing turnovers, bread and butter, scoring off the turnovers is the recipe for success, especially in the modern NBA for a lot of teams. The Thunder, the Raptors live off of this style as well. And the Magic are just kind of I said it before, Haslam said, they have to kind of get used to winning ugly. They're really good at playing defense, drawing fouls, and driving and scoring ugly shots at the rim. That's what this team does. They should do that well. And if they can also kind of utilize their 3-point shooters that they do have in maybe a few different ways, maybe they can unlock the spacing that bends the defense. That's really the goal there, is like you have Black, Suggs, and Bane shooting 40% on high volume of threes, and they can all shoot more and probably keep that efficiency. What can you do there to make it look a little more like off ball defense bending shooting gravity, get them a looks off ball to then counter all these drives? Since Bane shot those 10 threes for the first time, I asked him about it. He said the coaching staff wants him to get up 10. 10's the goal. That's what he used to average for Memphis. Like it shouldn't be that crazy that he does that level of volume here. Since he did that for the first time, Orlando's 4-3, 15th in point differential, 8th on defense, still just 22nd on offense, but second at drawing fouls and 11th at not turning it over, but 8th on defense, 3rd at forcing turnovers, 15th forcing tough shots, and 13th at grabbing rebounds. So at the very least, it's not otherworldly, but the defense has been back for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and Bane, the Magic have been getting more threes for Bane and Suggs too. Suggs had a crazy night the other night too in that span. So that's really the two things I wanted to see. More that defensive energy is back, and just more 3-point attempts for your best shooters. You have them. Let's use them. And to underline this last point, I think the big difference is the Magic are built, like we said, to when healthy, to be this drive and kick machine with those guys as the shooters. So when you lose a Paolo or you lose a Franz, suddenly you're relying on your best shooters to do all the creating for other role players, but the other role players aren't really great shooters like they are. So it suddenly becomes like an iffy 3-point shooter taking the open three instead of a 3-point sniper like Bane or Black or Suggs, who you cannot ever leave open, and suddenly they're open. So I think that is the last frontier of how this team figures out the 3-point shooting, because I don't think it's just bad luck. I don't think they're getting bad shots. I just think the wrong guys are taking those shots, and they need it to be Bane and Suggs and Black taking almost all the threes, with Wendell, Paolo, Franz right behind them in that 5 range. De Silva, too, is another guy that can light it up. He's 40% corner shooter.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought out that third point, because that was, as you were saying that, I was like, okay, so why was it not working with Bane before that game? And that makes perfect sense, right? Because he's on ball more, he's having to create and drive more because he's had a higher offensive role that is needed to. Right. Yeah, he's being asked to create because the team has had so many injuries, and it's great
to add to that. He's had a like veteran point guard mentality of like, I'm going to set everyone else up first and pick my spots. But I think it's finally clicking that this team kind of needs him to invert that and be, I'm going to look to pull up from 3 anytime you go under the screen, and then I'm going to create and drive, because he's already been a great driver off the handoffs here. It's just that it's what he does best that he hasn't fully unlocked. And I think it's just a little bit of a mentality flip of like setting up the team for a good to great shot to every shot that Bane takes is a great shot. Like that that is like a bad shot for Bane is better for an open shot for half the team. Like that's really the mentality that I want Bane to have.
No question, Ryan. You're a pretty smart like X's and O's guy. Like I
try to learn.
I feel like I've gotten better at it in the last couple seasons. I'm still not great by any means, but I've tried to not just watch games, but then like go back and watch specific sections, seeing how things are run. Sometimes I'll rewatch a game, just watching one or two players, and seeing the schemes around them. Have you? Let's just shift to Mosley for a second. We were going to talk about him a little bit later, but I want to talk about him now. Have you been satisfied with the type of system that he has run, and like his rotations and whatnot? Because like, okay, I have a few thoughts. One is, why, outside of injuries, and we talked about like the depth of this team, but they really struggled with this team, offensively for many weeks, right? And yes, we can talk about injuries, but there's also like sometimes what I was seeing on offense just seemed completely unimaginative. Like, why were there not more set plays for Bane in some cases? Why do we see shooters on the edges not moving around, trying to create more open opportunities, and they just, instead of like, they're like pretty stagnant and just stand there. Like rarely do I feel like I'm seeing someone like do an off ball screen for another shooter to get open, right? And then like, okay, you had this awesome example. We finally saw a few moments the first game of the Milwaukee Bucks series where or Paolo was playing the five. And it's
Right.
like, oh, cool, this is sick. And we didn't see it again in the second game. And that was kind of like the first time we saw it all season. And then we also saw in the second game, they did a double big with Jericho Sims and Miles Turner. And like we didn't see Coach kind of match that as a double big. Like we never saw like Goga or Ji next to Mo or Wendell, or even Go, or like we just never saw like them kind of match that. So like real quick, what are your thoughts on Mosley and how he has operated this team? Because I mean, I think a lot of people are frustrated. I think a lot of us see like this might be his last season with Orlando. How have you felt about Mosley and just how he's been operating this team and the systems he's got in place so far?
Yeah, and I have some more thoughts on Suggs and Paolo there too, but
And we'll,
with
we'll get to
Mosley,
that for sure.
no doubt. With Mosley, like I mean, I'm not in the huddle or anything, so I don't know exactly what the game plan is. I do get to ask him about it beforehand. That was a fun one where I asked him about the potential of that lineup before the game, and he didn't want to reveal his cards. Then after the game, he was joking that he thought about me in the huddle, and I was like, thanks for even mentioning me, Coach. I appreciate it. He was obviously joking, and it was very, very kind of just funny and cool to see the actual lineup come out. Like you said, he called it the right move as a small ball counter move to them going small, and the Orlando had already been switching, so why not try out the small ball lineup, because we haven't seen it, because they haven't really played a ton together as well, like with in terms of the actual five best players on the team. What makes that lineup special is like I just straight up call it the death lineup. Like it doesn't have Steph and Draymond, but it's built with two-way versatility in mind. Instead of Steph and Clay, it's Suggs and Bane. Instead of Iguodala, Harrison Barnes, and Draymond as your front court, it's Anthony Black, Franz Wagner, and Paolo Banchero. These guys are not exact copies by any means, but when combining all of the two-way versatility of all those players and the three-point shooting, like lights out from three of those Magic players with above average shooting from the two in the front court, and then you have two or three of their best defenders and two or three solid ones, like you're sacrificing rebounding and big man defense and rim protection for the most versatile lineup this team has. So the thing with lineups is like you can't do it full time. You normally, unless you find something that really just clicks perfectly and it becomes a league killer. So generally, even if it's the starting lineup, even if it's the closing lineup, like it just becomes one option, but it's a sick option to have, I think, for the modern NBA. And it's obviously had to be a part of the team building process. Like it's not like you accidentally fall into this lineup. Like this is why you draft this team this way, is so they can play this way at times. And they were already a mismatch killer in that one. I mean, they blew the lid off of him and they didn't get many stops, but to me, that's the lineup that has the most potential to go on Warriors third quarter type runs. Like all of a sudden they created 5 open threes, 40% 3-point shooters in 5 minutes. In that one, they literally had 3 threes made in 3.5 minutes. And Paulo also kind of clinked one off the side of the backboard, and it didn't matter because they were just getting up so many threes from, again, their best shooters. And I think that is just going to completely change the look. But in terms of Coach Mose, like I do nothing but give credit to Coach Mose for like everything he's built here. And like, I don't get bogged down with too many individual decisions like that I might have done differently, because I just don't know enough about what all the game plan stuff is. I do think his rotations and the substitution patterns are very kind of independent for each game. Like I think there are pros and cons to that. It keeps the opponent off balance. They don't know what to expect, and they don't know what the rotations look like. Like they don't, like if they know, for example, the Clippers with JJ Redick are in town, they know he's coming off screens the entire time he's coming off the bench. They can kind of game plan for that. if you have no idea who's coming off the bench, then they can't really game plan for it. So there is a little bit of game strategy, I think, to that, but it has some negative effects. Like we talked with Tyus earlier about guys not necessarily knowing their roles. Maybe a guy like Goga kind of losing motivation unless he starts because it's so random what his role is. He's been great with the starters and then looks like he doesn't really, want to play as hard when he's not starting. So what is that part of the rotation? Is that substitution? Who knows? In terms of the half court itself, honestly, outside of Paolo, this whole team needs a screen to score in the half court. There's not really anyone other than Paolo that can ISO, post up, go create, go get a bucket without a screen. And so that leads to the endless handoff drive and kick machine that works really well for this team. And that's kind of where the plays boil down to is those are plays, they're handoffs, they're online, they're called Zoom actions in a sense because there's a lot of different versions of it. Anytime there's a screen and a handoff with two screeners, it's kind of referred to as a Zoom, but that could mean like a Chicago action or a Miami or Orlando action. They're named after some of these cities, which are slightly different variations of it. But Orlando runs Chicago all the time. Well, they'll run Bane from a corner to the top of the key, off of one screen, off of a second screen, get a handoff, and go downhill. And Bane's been great driving, scoring, drawing fouls, hitting Wendell with the pocket passes and the alley-oops and the lobs. They do that exact same thing with Franz and similar with Suggs and Black, but to a lesser degree. And that's kind of been the thing that has worked for Orlando to at least create shots at the rim, to draw fouls with its best foul drawers, and in theory, create open threes on the kick out, but they just haven't really knocked them down. And Paulo's the one that doesn't, like, everyone questions or had those questions earlier in the season because Paolo was the odd man out when they were running this style of play and it was working. But, at the end of the day, Paolo could end up better individually than anybody here. And he could very well, he still is an efficient play type in himself any way you run him. Like the fans should understand that half court offense creating an open look on the aggregate was just as efficient as handing the ball to Paolo and letting him do whatever he wanted. Like that's how good Paolo is, even despite some off jump shooting numbers. Like he's 1.0 PPP in every play type, no matter how they use them. So that is a good thing in theory. You have all these options, but in practice, it has been a little jumbled up. So I think at the end of the day, they lost some of the depth in the Bane trade. They tried to get new depth and it didn't work. They're, like you said, they're now relying on young players, inexperienced players for all this depth. And some of the main guys have been hurt. So I wrote about it before. The reason they didn't make any major trades, any major moves is there was a big enough small sample size to bet on the starting lineup in the young core. Like the top five is, I think, had the 5th or 6th best net rating in the league over 100 minutes. That's worth betting on. Anthony Black wasn't even a part of that, and he's exploded. That's worth betting on. So they kind of know their guys work when healthy. And compared to the Nuggets, after trading for Aaron Gordon, they had that 2-week stretch. They looked like league beaters, and then Jamal got hurt for 2 years with his ACL and finally gets back and fully healthy, and they make a run and make the championship run just after that. They stayed patient after making that trade and seeing enough in those 2 weeks. That core was just as good as anyone in the league, and they just kind of sat it out or waited it out. So I think the Magic are in year one of a totally new era with Desmond Bane, dealing with a lot of injuries and a lot of changing seats and a lot of moving parts. And to me, I do question why the team is so up and down. I wonder why the team looks like a top 10 team one night and a bottom 10 team the next. And that generally reflects on coaching. And I've kind of given it the benefit of the doubt that the lack of availability for anyone but Bane basically this year has just made it a different team almost every night. So it's kind of hard to build that consistency until these last couple weeks where everyone is just getting healthy, and we might finally see Suggs, Bane, Franz, Paolo, Wendell with Black as the 6th man, De Silva as the 7th man, and you have 2 rookies and Jason Penda to go to. You have Mo Wagner or Goga or Isaac to throw in there in the front court with all your options. And that team is they have you can flip it and say, despite all these injuries, they're still in the playoff range, still in the playoffs, a late
Totally.
playoff seed. So like to me, they get healthy, they kind of figure out a few things that we've hit on here, and you're looking at if you can still win a playoff series, that's a successful season even before the year started. So I think that's the goal now is let's get some experience that actually matters with this roster, with this team to kind of go through the growing pains that you're talking about that you need for to get the experience to then get over the top.
I have mixed feelings about Mosley. I don't think he's done as bad of a job as the internet seems to want to say about him, because again, like, he's dealing with a broken team, a kind of, in my opinion, somewhat poorly constructed roster, dealing with some of the front offices, constant missing on the margin mistakes that has built up over the years. You can miss on the margins here and there and it not be a big deal, but when you've kind of missed on them regularly for the last decade, it's it builds up to where you don't have as many, yeah, it's just challenges that coaches is out of coaches' control. But I also am like, am I seeing coaches ceiling, right? Is this, and we'll see the next 29 games if this team stays healthy, but are we seeing his ceiling as a coach? And if this is his ceiling, then the I imagine there's going to be a new coach this summer, coming in for the following season. But a lot of things could change too. Like if they go on these next 29 games and they go, I don't know, 20-9 or something like that. That's going to change all of our perceptions on a lot of this, or just impact things a lot differently. I don't know if they'll go 20-9. That seems wishful thinking in some ways, but just throwing that out there as what potentially could happen with Paulo, man. I think he is the tip of the spear for a lot of people at the moment, and they're running at him with torches, and I'm like, well, okay, is he actually as bad as everyone thinks he is? Or is he struggling in a big area that he has struggled in often since he's been drafted with his scoring efficiency? And is he making improvements everywhere else? And I tend to lean to the latter side, where I do see him trying to make quicker reads and decisions within the start of an offense. I do see him improving as a rebounder. I do see him trying to make smarter, better passes. There are still turnovers that are coming with him, but I also see, like, I had this comment in the Discord for Orlando Magic HQ the other day, and it's like, somehow that beautiful kick out to Jalen Suggs that Jalen Suggs missed is going to be a Paolo fault, and Jalen Suggs was wide open, right? Because that's just how the fan base wants to view everything right now. And yeah, his defense has not been great. The effort on that side has not been great either, in my opinion. But like, I do see him growing. Like, rarely am I annoyed that he is just dribbling the air out of the ball and just trying to ISO and not like trying to make an opportunity for someone else. I don't have those same types of frustrations. It's more like it seems like the explosion has left him a little bit. So I wonder how healthy he really is with his hamstring. He is just not efficient with his scoring in almost any degree at the moment. So I just in general, like, I don't think he's been as bad as everyone seems to make him out to be, but I do think, his gift is being this 200 and something pounds, 6'10", 6'11" forward that can score and be a mismatch machine, and is just, continuing to deal with being an extremely inefficient player in the offense. And so I'm not, like I said, I'm a little more optimistic on other areas of his games that have grown, but I wanted to hear like what you are seeing and thinking about Paulo so far this season.
Yeah, man, there's definitely a lot of criticism going his way, and I think you hit on what the big thing to me is the explosiveness. It's completely changed him as a player. He's a totally different like player if he's not getting the same bounce, explosiveness, athletic advantage that he did kind of 2 years ago or even as a rookie. So, you know, whatever that is, whether it's training or something, or, finding the right combination of weights or, speed and all that. Maybe it's another off season of recovery and training to get that back. But that's the first and foremost biggest difference. Cause just, you know, just for example, like most of his jump shooting stats are off, but like most of his stats are just as good as his all-star year. Like he's not actually playing all that much worse than the all-star year. I mean, one or two fewer points, point 0.6 less assists, like 40, technically point zero, like 34% 3-point shooter his all-star year to only 30% this year. But like everything else is about the same. And he's drawing more. It's actually his most efficient year by true shooting percentage, which is scoring efficiency overall. And that's because of a handful of reasons that boil down to his decision making, I think. He's drawing more fouls than ever. He's got the highest free throw rate of his career. That is the most efficient shot in basketball. So the more he can get, the better there. He's attacking more. He's being used more as a short roll elbow connector, I think, whether it's pick and roll, or at least at times he is. And he's taking more efficient shots overall. It was especially true to start the season. I'm trying to pull it up to make sure it's still true, but just generally speaking, his shot profile has been more efficient. And by taking fewer tough mid-range shots, which he is, and taking more shots at the rim and free throw shots, and generally as many threes, but not as many mid-range twos and deep twos, that's just a better shot profile. So like, while he's missing his jump shots, he's taking much fewer of them than ever. And I think people are just too like picking on Paolo at this point. Like he's not his former self at the moment this year. He's clearly been off with some of his athleticism, and something's off, whatever it is. I couldn't really tell you if it's an injury, if it's a mindset. Maybe it's all this talk kind of getting to him a little bit as well. Like
Combination of everything.
Yeah, like all those can be factors, and like I think Magic fans need to let up on their star. Like they should not be like it's okay to criticize maybe off performances, but like just because he misses a few jump shots, which are his like kill shots as well when he makes them, like it's as if like he's all he does. It's as if they're saying all he does or brings to the court is mid-range jump shooting, and if he doesn't make those, suddenly he's bad. Like no, that's the bonus. Like he's a downhill force foul drawing all-star who scores at will and is putting up his all-star numbers. And if he didn't have all this like hoopla around him, the way he's covered, like, and you look, he should be an all-star replacement based on where he's at. Like Siakam made all-star on the worst team in the league and had better numbers individually, but like Paolo's on the 7th seed. He's only 2 behind the Raptors. The Raptors are the 5 seed. They have 2 all-stars and the Magic don't have one. Like they're still the 7th seed. They're still in the playoffs, even if they're not the runaway 3 seed like everyone thought. But when you're missing your 4 best players the whole season, you're probably going to fall from 3rd seed expectations to 7th seed. Like, I don't think this team I think this team hasn't lived up to those preseason expectations, clearly. And most of that is due to injuries and not preparing the roster to sustain those injuries. And you would think they have they have more stars than they do depth. Like they have more like top 5, top 6 guys than they do 7 through 10 guys. Like that should be the easy thing to replace. And to me, that's kind of what the plan is with Jason Penda, is just kind of seeing it fill out. And, De Silva as well. So, I think Paulo, I think the Paulo thing is probably him getting in the gym this summer and doing something different. What that is, I don't know, but I think that's what it boils down to, is him kind of getting his peak athletic explosiveness bounce back to get a little higher on those jump shots and get a little higher on those throwdowns. I mean, I think that missed dunk kind of symbolizes what we're talking about with, like, 2 years ago, Paolo's throwing down this transition high flying slam like it's nothing to take the lead. And instead it turns into a 4-point swing that the Magic lose in a close game at the end. And that's just like how, they have had some clutch performances actually this year, but like, that's just kind of the way it's gone for this team, is like, it just a very clear symbol of like, just that extra little inch of lift for Paolo makes a big difference to take him from like fringe all-star to potential superstar. And best version of this team is those 5 guys, if not 6, 7, 8 guys, being fully healthy together. So we kind of see what they actually look like together. And that's, I think, how you judge maybe who should be here long term is you see 20, 30, 40 games of like, what do these top 6 or 7 look like? And is there an odd man out? Because there's Suggs, there's Banchero, and do these guys kind of fit with everyone else? Because I'm not gonna lie, I think Jalen Suggs has been the most important Magic player this season. Plus 10-point swing with Suggs, what available, plus 6.4 when he's on the floor in 900 minutes, and minus 3.7 when he's off the floor in like 1,700 minutes. And if you just do the games where he plays, it's like minus 2 point something in 800 minutes or so. So, you know, very clear impact swing. The Magic go as Suggs goes, and I think it's a little hard to accept because everyone thinks it's the Magic go as Paolo goes. And while that was true 2 years ago, this year it's all Suggs. He might be, if he was healthy the whole year. If you look, I'll pull the impact numbers up. He's like a top 30, top 50 player this year. Like he's been unreal anytime he's out there. And not only does he spark the Magic with the forced turnovers and the pick sixes and the chase down blocks that turn into 4-point swings, that's the Magic's identity. And he's their point guard setting up all the shots. Like he's becoming like as important to this team as a Halliburton is to Indiana. When Suggs is out there for Orlando, they're electric. And when he's not, they're a totally different team.
Well, and I agree. Suggs is such a key player for this team, but I also think like we had this time period where we were missing Suggs and Franz, and they're our 2 best perimeter defenders right now. And it's like, oh, cool. You're not going to be able to slow anyone down if you don't have your 2 best perimeter defenders, one of them being a 6'10" forward.
Right. That's going to take an elite defense and make them average.
And then when you don't have we lost some perimeter defense too with this past offseason with losing guys like KCP and Gary Harris and Corey Joseph, who all played, good. I mean, KCP played a lot. He was a starter for this team, but the other guys, they didn't play a ton, but like, I think Gary played 30 or 40 games for the Magic. Corey Joseph played the end of the season. He was a decent perimeter defender too. And the team just lost so much depth. And then with those guys being gone and that specific skill set, and then, okay, cool. You lose Suggs and Franz at the same time. You're like, yeah, your defense is going to suck for a while. And that's hard to deal with. That's really hard to deal with, particularly when, the rest of the roster is filled with capable defenders, but often most of them are probably better suited as a help defender than a point of attack defender. And, yeah, man, I agree. Like Suggs has been such a revitalization, like for this team, like you said, with those big transition moments that he creates with turning stops into transition offense. He's come around as a shooter. He's not just a spark for the team, but he's a spark for the crowd because he'll play to the crowd, which I love. I wish more NBA players did that. Like, this is a show for the fans. Like, if you make a big shot and there's a timeout, like, come on, bring us in. Like, let's go.
Right,
I don't know.
let's
I
go.
feel like I love that Suggs does that. And I wish more NBA players did that kind of stuff because it just makes it more fun to want to root for them and get the crowd going and stuff like that.
Completely think that it makes a difference in the energy in the building. And when him and Mo Wagner
absolutely
do that sort of thing, like Orlando has a killer record, especially at home, because of all of those things. Like you have the energy of the fans, you get your teammates up, you get everybody hyped. That when you like rely on energy for defense, for your team identity, and you don't have that initial spark, it never explodes. Like you never get that explosive, chaotic defense that you need to survive, which is what this team's bread and butter is. And you don't have it if you don't have those guys creating those energy.
Ryan, we got a few minutes left. We've been talking for 55 minutes already of just recorded time. So let's kind of end it focusing on the last 29 games and what we think this team can achieve realistically. They're currently sitting 7th in the standings. They have hold on, I gotta pull up the actual standings and not just the Magic to see who's in front of them. So yeah, they're 7th in the standings, 28 and 25. They have Philadelphia, who is 30-24 in front of them, Toronto Raptors 32-23 in front of them before they get into the top four. What do you think is realistic for this team in the remaining 29 games, assuming they stay healthy? I think they'll avoid the play-in. That would be my hope, that they can catch Toronto and Philly and kind of avoid the play-in there. But do you still see this team as a team that can be a serious second round threat like we all thought they could be? Do they have enough time to figure it out in 29 games?
You know what? I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say that the
I like
East
that
is
answer. Me too.
I'm going to say that this team, Mo Wagner just kind of hit on it. It's a long season. There's 82 games. It's not a 12 games or 16 game like, football schedule or something where, you lose a few games. It's really tough to come back. Like, this is basketball. Not only is it the three ball in any given game very volatile in terms of scoring, like the whole season can be. So, there are enough things bouncing back in Orlando's direction, with the big if, now that the injuries are kind of recovering, if they can just kind of stay healthy now, this is the road you've been waiting for. Is this like 30, 40 game stretch or whatever it is, to see how everyone gels fully healthy, with the energy of those three hustle type guys sparking the offense and everything else. Just to hit on Suggs from before, 22nd in dunks and threes EPM overall actual impact metric. That's the 22nd most impactful overall player in the league, according to dunks and threes. 16th on defense, plus 2.3 defensive EPM. And what's key is still positive, plus 1 point offense. He's one of only three players are as impactful defensively as Jalen Suggs, who are actually better offensively. That's what stands out. Like, not only is he an elite defender, he has developed into a complete basketball player. He went from one of those guys that was one of the worst rookies by overall impacts, who clearly did not have kind of the proven skills and everything yet as a rookie, to developing gradually different things, going through injuries. He's always been something of a handoff option, but now he's developed into the game slowing down, knowing how to read the defense. I mean, it's insane what a difference Suggs makes for this team, to the point where if he's here ready to go the rest of the way, like healthy, he's been putting up like he's a walking 5x5, threatening a triple double any given night if he hits his threes. Like, he's had like 2 or 3 in a row now where he just walks out with 7 stocks, like, just because it's a Tuesday night for Suggs. And when him and like when they're at their best, everyone's a little more free as well to use that defensive instincts to force those turnovers. And that's another place like where health comes in. When you have like 3+ defenders and 3 elite defenders to rotate through, these guys can jump passes a little bit and kind of know that they have some strong defense behind them if they do. Maybe even better when they can actually kind of like run the clock out by building the lead first and lean on that defense from then on out. That's a lot easier to lean on defense than we're down 20. Let's get stops to get out of this. Like,
totally.
that's a tough mindset. So it's a lot easier to be a defensive team from ahead, and it's a lot easier to get ahead with explosive scoring, playing fast from when Suggs is out there. So to me, Suggs is just the key to everything. Like, he has been a bona fide star when he's healthy and available. He's played 33 games out of a potential 53. So that shows like 20 of these games he's been out, and they've been missing the head of the snake for their defense, the head of the snake point guard for their offense. And like, even though the other 3 stars are billed as the potential all-stars of this team, that's how important Suggs has been. Like, I think he has clearly been that level. And what's crazy is like Black exploded and kind of joined that group too. But in terms of like team impact, it's been Suggs this year, and Franz too, but Suggs really to a different level of. Franz still brings that same level of two-way impact, but Suggs brings a little bit more of kind of the energy that fuels the Magic's entire identity a little bit.
It's so needed.
And his stuff is what sparks everything else. Well, while Franz still brings that like consistent two-way force, just about as impactful as anybody. He's really high on these metrics too. But Bane's 3-point shooting last in this stretch, has been back 49% from three on the 6 threes a game over the last 11 games, 51% from three over the last 7, including the night he shot 10. So, or he shot 10 and made 7. He broke both of those the other night. I think he went like 8 for 11. So, well, that's what we want to see is the rest of the way the Magic turn this thing around is, in my opinion, more threes for your best shooters. That's roughly 8 to 10 a game for Bane, Black, and Suggs, and instead of like 5 or 6 a game where they're at now. And same goes for bumping up some of the ancillary guys. Just more, try to scheme more threes for your good ones and less threes for your bad ones. Even though everyone needs to be able to make one, like at the end of the day, you just need more. Like if you want this three ball to balance out your elite drivers, you just need more threes to actually threaten the defense. Like you need the defense to be as scared of Bane, Black, and Suggs curling around a screen as they are Franz and Paolo getting downhill to fully be threatening everything at once. And, you hit on the plays themselves. What we finally seen is when they throw in a wrinkle of let's run Bane around an off-ball screen, get him ahead of steam, get him the ball. If the defender goes under the screen, it's a pull-up 3. If he's chasing him, it's a drive, it's a handoff, floater, bump and finish, pick and roll to the roller, handoff man. Like that's been a great play for them. But what you hit on is interesting. It feels like they find a wrinkle and it works, and then they just kind of sit on it. And I am curious, how much is there any aspect of this team kind of sitting on some of their best options to use them later in the playoffs?
Yeah.
But the only reason that I regress a little bit on that is like this team just isn't proven enough to do that. Like
right.
We need to like get the reps in now so they can be relied on the playoffs, not just kind of hope it all works in the playoffs. And I don't think they're really waiting on it, but like to me, if everyone's healthy, you can stagger enough of these players so that you always have like elite defenders and elite scorers in at all times. You can play the best guys together. You can shorten the rotation to these top 6 or 7 plus 1 or 2 guys, depending on the matchup. And there is definitely a way to kind of like tighten up the ship a little and just run what works going forward instead of all the experimentation. And it's just one of those things where you see it for 6 minutes and then it kind of goes away for 6 minutes. And I don't know what
and
that
then
is.
Another 6 games.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It just comes and goes. And I think just kind of like really hitting hard on what's worked for this team and building out from there is how they get there. That finding the defense, forcing turnovers like they have before, sticking on, if they can be top 5 forcing turnovers like they have been the last 2 years, that elite defense will be back. That pretty much only happens from Suggs, Wagner, and Bane and Black in Franz, mucking it up. Paolo's been racking up some blocks as well. Like Paolo's another defender where like you don't necessarily want him out on an island on the perimeter, maybe against certain matchups, but where he helps is as a help side shot blocker. So if you can kind of set him up where he's defending the post while also able to just trust his defense and just go chase some blocks, that's where you get a little bit of his instincts, I think.
And that
as
was
a rebounder.
very clear at the start of the season when this team was healthy.
Right.
It was so relevant back then for me to see that
it was
his defense.
It was almost like a concerted effort.
Well, at that point, he was averaging like over 1 block a game at that point. And he's at like 6 now, but like there was like a 20-game sample size where he was, roughly that. Don't quote me on that exact number, people. But in the beginning of the season, when this team, before they started having starts, he was averaging over 1 block a game. And that was career high for him.
Absolutely. And, now that Suggs is back, like I joke every time he does it, like he gets a chase down block and a pick 6 every game.
Well, and with this team being healthy again, everyone falls into their ideal roles.
That's the key.
That's huge. You're not asking Paolo to be a point of attack defender on the wing. He gets to kind of go back to being, the defender that he is better at, being a help defender, kind of help side block defender. You're getting someone like Bane who, can attack closeouts and play make for other people, but also is going to get more of his opportunities from 3. Like we've been discussing all podcasts. It's just, this team has to stay healthy, and they got 29 games of the regular season. I hope they will maintain health, at least to a degree, for their core players. I imagine a guy will miss a game here and there, but we don't want to see anything where they're missing 10, 12 games again. We want this team to stay healthy. They start off after this All-Star break on Thursday on a 4-game road trip. It's the next it's their longest road trip of the rest of the season. At Sacramento, at Phoenix, at Clippers, at Los Angeles for the Lakers. So it'll be a good test. There's some good teams in there. Phoenix is playing good basketball this season. The Clippers they've been playing very good basketball recently too. Kawhi Leonard's having a career year. Los Angeles Lakers, they're a mixed bag, but they got Luka and LeBron and Austin Reeves, and that's going to be a good test. We're going to learn a lot about this team as soon as they come back from this All-Star break on this 4-game road trip. Ryan, thank you so much for joining. You joined at the beginning of the season. We have you here at this midway checkpoint, and hopefully we'll get you on again closer towards the end of the season as we're getting into the playoffs. That'd be fun to kind of look back and be like, Ryan, they've been healthy. Like, this is what we've learned from this team. So we'll connect again later on in this season. As we wrap it up, just let everyone know where they can find your work.
Absolutely. I appreciate you having me on, man. It's always fun talking hoops, Steven. You can find me at Beyond the RK on Twitter, YouTube, Substack, covering the Magic, along with the Grizzlies, Bucks, and Pacers for Sports Illustrated, Magic on SI, and on SI for all those sites, and at Swish Theory for the Learning Basketball podcast, where we just interview all the interesting folks around the basketball industry and try to learn something every episode. So gotta check it out there, and definitely always fun talking hoops. I'll leave you with this: the potential assists we were looking up before. You got a lot of Magic players, the main stars are high on the potential assists. You got Paolo leading the way with 8.6 per game, but Suggs is right behind it, right there, 8.5 potential assists per game. I mean, that's 9 potential assists that they are making every single game that are open shots that are missed by their teammates, whether it's maybe not open, but makeable shots, whether it's a layup or a three. And like just the other day, first quarter, Suggs, every time down, is creating a good look for his team, and the Magic just whiff 5 of them. And it's like, you just need play finishers as much as you do creators in that sense. At their best, it's built that way, but maybe missing a few, it's not. You also have Bane at 7.6, Black and Franz at 6.8. And a quick check is that all 5 of those guys, none of them are in the top 50, but all of them are 50 to 100. So they're all in the top 100 of potential assists. So, we'll simmer on what that could mean. To me, maybe that means those are your top 5 ball handlers, and they're creating good looks for your team, but the guys they're creating it to are missing. So ideally, if you have all 5 of them available, those are the guys now finishing the shots as well, because that's what makes them so lethal, is they're that versatile of an offense in theory. They can all dribble, pass, and shoot and score, and some of them can pull up 3 as well now and really stretch the floor that way. So finding that mix of what the Magic do best with everyone healthy is the big key. And I think it starts with Suggs this year. I think he's just kind of the big swing factor for everything for this team going forward. And definitely always fun talking hoops. Happy to do it anytime, man.
Bro, I love that you just ended on more positivity, because I swear after that second Milwaukee Bucks game the Orlando Magic fan base was going to explode. So thank you. That's going to wrap up this episode, Magic fans. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Close-Up. Ryan, once again, thank you for joining, and we'll see you next time. Go Magic.
You know it.